The next event is going to be hosted by VMware in Q3. Be sure and keep on the lookout for additional information about that as we get closer to the date. COPA United, as you know, it was scheduled for May, but due to the health concerns, we rescheduled it for September 12th. So if you have any questions about that, let's go ahead and continue to keep the momentum going, continue to enroll teams, and take advantage of the sponsorship opportunities there. It's a great event every year. It's the third year running. It's a deep partnership between the HCCA and Sarah Marsky and other people in the community. So let's make sure and come out strong for COPA United. If you have any questions about that, email myself or Sarah Marsky. We have our annual forum hosted by Delta Airlines. We're all very excited about that. I know it's going to be a huge success, but make sure to put that date on your calendar. Again, we'll be sending out more information about these events as we get closer to the date, but we look forward to seeing you at some or all of these. Now, with that, I want to say a few words about who the audience is today. So we ask the members of the audience to participate in a little bit of a poll, and it looks like we have a good diverse representation from various parts of different companies that are with us today. So it looks like we have, let's see, let me get rid of this share so you guys can see me. Okay, so it looks like we have an equal split between finance, operations, IT, and other. So it looks like we have a good diverse group of people in the event today, so we're really glad you're here. So a good spread of people across most of the major groups. We're a little bit underrepresented in HR, marketing, PR, and sales, but finance, operations, IT, and other, we have a good representation. And then as usual, we have a great representation of HAERG leaders or BERG leaders, right? We have a lot of these events are normally leader only, and because we want to make sure to be able to accommodate all our leaders. But because it's been a virtual event, and thanks to AT&T's infrastructure, we've been able to hold this event online and invite all of our BERG members. So it's really good to have you here today, and it looks like we have a good representation from BERG members, BERG leaders, allies, and also a few people who say their company doesn't have a BERG. And be sure and get in touch with me after this meeting, and we can help you with that. All right, so next I want to introduce Tino Mantella. Tino is the president and CEO of the Turknett Leadership Group, and he is a longtime executive with a ton of experience in a wide variety of different spaces, including nonprofit, for-profit, and all sorts of different sectors. We're excited to have him here. I know he's going to do a great job. He has a lot of experience in the finance organization of different groups and in leadership, and I'm excited to have him here. So, Tino, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, John Patrick. First of all, can you hear me? Everybody can hear me? Yeah, good. So I'm really excited. It's I've been to some of the HCCA meetings before. I'm a big supporter of your group. When Nancy Cranford reached out and asked me if I'd participate, I was happy to do that. I'm particularly excited because we're going to be talking to the CFO or the CFO suite. And we spent some time prior to this call, of course, coming up with what I think are some really good questions. But I also want to invite everybody listening in to start thinking about questions as we go through, and then Vanessa later on is going to be able to, we're going to definitely leave some time for people to ask those questions, and I'm sure our panel will do a great job answering it. The group that put the panel together has done a terrific job, and I'm going to let them, the panelists, introduce themselves, but I'll just say that we have Kristen McCollum, who is the CFO of the United Way of Greater Atlanta. Jose, I'm going to mess up his last name, but Paniagua, VP Treasurer at Inspire Brands. Jose can correct me on that in a little bit. And then Steve Stone, who's CFO of North America at Accenture. So what we wanted to do is just start out with getting to know you question, and then we'll move into some more detail. You'll kind of see how this flows. So let's start with Kristen. But the question for all of the panelists is just tell us something about yourself, maybe family, where you were born, a fun fact, whatever you want to tell, it within like, let's say 60 seconds. So Kristen, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Tino, and thank you to everyone on the call for having me. Can you hear me clearly? Okay, awesome. My name is Kristen McCollum. I have been at United Way of Greater Atlanta for 17 years, a graduate of Auburn University. So War Eagle to anyone out there that's an Auburn fan. Boo to anyone else that's in the SEC. I'm just kidding, I'm a football fan. I started off my career at Ernst & Young downtown, and then moved over to United Way. It just kind of happened to be the right opportunity at the right time, and have been there ever since 2003. I am married, have three children. I'm in one of their bunk bedrooms right now, as you can see, and this is what happens when we're working remote, trying to get a room where no one can bother me. But Ryan is 8, Griffin is 7, and then Addison is 5. So it's been an amazing and interesting and challenging several months of being remote now. And as far as something about me, I love to run and bike. I live right off the Alpharetta Greenway, so spend a lot of time on the Greenway.
Great.
Happy.
Thanks, Kristen. Let's go to Jose. Sorry, I butchered your last name there, Jose. Sorry about that. You may be muted.
Just rolls off the tongue. But anyways, I'm actually originally from the Dominican Republic. I've been in Georgia now for the last 30 years, and currently I'm the VP Treasurer for Inspire Brands. I've been in Treasury since 2003. And it's been a very rewarding role for me, and with Inspire, or one of its affiliates, in that time. I've actually been the treasurer for Inspire since 2016. And for those of you that are not familiar with Inspire Brands, we're actually relatively new company, only a couple years old, but we own restaurant brands that you probably have heard of. And probably have even dined at. Arby's, Sonic Drive-In, Buffalo Wild Wings, Jimmy John's, and we've got a smaller brand that's about 30 restaurants called Rusty Taco. So all told, we've got about 11,100 restaurants across our system, over $14 billion in system sales. So it makes us the 5th largest restaurant company in the U.S. And in my role, I oversee the organization's capital structure, and ultimately it's the strategic vision for how the company achieves its goals. Manage the company's liquidity, payments, inflows and outflows, which is a fun little ecosystem in of itself. And typical treasury functions. As far as a little fun fact, I'm an avid sports fan. I did not go to an SEC school, but I'm a big Georgia fan, so no War Eagle. I did somebody do a Gator chomp in there though. I've got an MBA from Emory University, and I'm a season ticket holder for all the major sports here in Atlanta. So there you go.
Good. Well, hopefully they'll open up again soon so you can actually go to something. But
yeah, right.
Thanks, Jose. Steve, let's go to you.
All right. Am I off mute? Make sure.
You're good.
All right. Perfect. Well, first, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. As introduced, my name is Steve Stone. I'm the CFO of Accenture. Have been for probably I don't know, what is it now? Feels like a long time ago, 3 or 4 months. I spent most of my career as a CFO, but spent 3 years prior to this March being the CFO of North America for those operation folks. So I've been in operations, been in finance, and been with Accenture coming up on 25 years. where I did spend 3 or 4 years in a nonprofit organization. So I got to experience that before going to a public organization. I am married, just hit 28 years with my wife on June 6th. And so that's exciting. And I have 2 kids, that a son that's 26 and a daughter that's 22. So it's nice to have them older. I won't say they're fully out of the house or off the payment, but they're getting there. So that's exciting. And then, of course, I have a dog that my daughter, I guess I inherited from my daughter, that was left for a couple weeks. That now has been 3.5 years later. So that's my family. We've been in Atlanta, I don't know, 8 years, but I was born in Kentucky and have moved 10 times in my life. So that's a little bit a fun fact. It's something I said I wouldn't do, but you know, the experiences were there, and it's nice to have friends almost in every part of the country. I've been on the West Coast, East Coast, Central. So it's been certainly an experience and something I never would have envisioned. You know, some fun fact is I do enjoy golfing. So it's been a little bit challenging with this environment, you know, for a while where they told us to stay at home. I think, you know, my wife probably wasn't as excited as some others that happened. I think she was good with me in doses, but every day kind of brought on some new challenges. So I'm excited to be here today, but that's a little bit about myself.
Thanks, Steve. Let's go around the horn again. And this time, I'm sure our audience will want to know a little bit more about the company. Some of you touched on that. Jose gave a little bit of a picture. But talk about it in terms of vision, mission, values, and if you want to touch on scope and size, that'd be great as well. So let's start with you, Kristen.
Sure, thanks, Tino. United Way of Greater Atlanta is independent of all United Ways, so a lot of people don't know that. I wanted to throw out that fact. There's about 1,200 local United Ways in the United States. The headquarters is Alexandria, Virginia, but again, we're all our own 501c3 nonprofit. Locally here in Atlanta, we raise around $100 million in revenue. Most of that comes from corporate and individual giving, about 70 or so million. 20 million of that is foundation revenue and government grants. And then the remaining is building income. We own kind of 3/4 of our block, if you will. We own a parking deck, surface lot, and we own our own building, which also encompasses the Loudermilk Conference Center. If you've ever been there for a conference center event, it's a great space. So we own that as well. And then the remaining income is in kind. We have a warehouse down off of Metropolitan Parkway, where we receive various goods from America's Mart, Home Depot, Staples, you name it. It's probably been at that warehouse. And then we distribute those goods to nonprofits that need the goods. So, for example, during COVID, we received a large supply of toilet paper from Kimberly-Clark, and we're able to distribute that to people and nonprofits that could then distribute to people in need. So that's pretty cool. As far as our mission, you know, we are all about child well-being and you know, how are the children doing? We focus on we use a lot of data to focus on areas of low and very low child well-being, as defined by 14 different indicators, and then we attempt to or put the donor dollars at work in those communities to hopefully change the trajectory of the lives of those children. Things are very cyclical, and it's not a matter of just providing food for children. It's providing healthcare, it's providing transportation, it's providing a lot of things. So we try to encompass the whole community and change the lives of those in those areas. That's a little bit about what we do.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go back to Jose. Maybe you can expound on your last comments about what you guys do. Maybe a little bit, Jose, more about the vision. You have lots of, obviously, restaurants. You made us all hungry if we haven't eaten yet. I'm in that camp. So go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a restaurant holding company, we're in the dining business, and more importantly, we're in the experience business. So, you know, our our purpose is to ignite and nourish flavorful experiences. And all of our brands have their own purposes and promises based on their business model and what they're trying to achieve. But the most important there is that we really want to connect people with good food at a good price in a reasonable amount of time. Most of our restaurants are QSR, which stands for quick service restaurant. Other people call it fast food, which is, you know, the same thing. We do have one brand that's in casual dining, a sports bar, Buffalo Wild Wings, and you know their particular purpose is to inspire legendary experiences between friends. But what the common theme across all of them really is that we want to make sure that when folks come and when guests come to our restaurants, that they have a good experience with us, so that we give them a good reason to continue to come back. We have several foundations under each of the restaurants and also a foundation that sits up at Inspire, and they all help to serve our communities, especially children. So we work very closely with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. We work closely with No Kids Hungry and other similar organizations of the same vein in helping the younger generation become really, really good leaders.
That's great. That's great. Steve, let's go to you.
Yeah, so our vision for Accenture is to become, one of the world's leading companies to bring innovation to improve the way that we kind of, the world works, lives, and so forth. And so it's a big mission where we serve most of the global 100. I think we do 90 out of 100 of them. We serve the global 2000. So we're pretty big reach. In North America, we're about 20 billion, and we have 60,000 employees. Now, globally, we are one of the largest employers. We have over 500,000, which was quite an event when COVID hit, to make sure we could equip and get everyone to work at home with that size and scale. Luckily, because we are a technology company, we were able to ship computers to get the right software up to date, and it allowed us to continue to run. Part of my scope as CFO is, all aspects of which you think of finance, working with our clients, making sure, our treasury, our kind of those functions. Also, I do have additional roles that I take on. I lead up our corporate citizenship group for North America. So where we want to make investments in our local communities as well as national. I also serve as our executive sponsor of mental wellness, ERG, which is something that obviously has had a lot of activity with some of the events that are going on with not only COVID, but with some of the racial issues that our employees experience. So we're trying to make sure we help them, have those open discussions and help people deal with those events. So, with that, also, I probably have a couple thousand people directly that work for me, supporting the business. For Accenture itself, what we really do is anywhere from what you would think of strategy work. So we think of the front end of a client, how do they reorganize, how do they change the brand, to where we will then implement systems. So we will put in new systems, financial systems, customer care systems, and then we'll even get into outsourcing, which is more where we will take over someone's processes and run call centers, F&A, so run people's finance and accounting. What we're a little proud of now is through some of these challenges, we do now have a couple thousand people that we are working with many of the states to do two things. One is help them clear unemployment claims. So during this crisis, many states couldn't handle that. We did rally some of our people and ramped up within a matter of a week to help address that backlog. And then we're also helping many of the states now that they are testing for COVID, where we are doing kind of chasers and tracers, where reaching out to people that might be impacted, to understand, who they might be in contact with, making sure we contact those individuals to prevent any further spreading of the disease. So pretty broad range of work that we do. And, we continue to reinvent ourselves. Most recently now we are one of the largest marketing brand agencies that we've done through a bunch of acquisitions. So let me just pause there because I know I said a lot to keep the agenda.
No, that's great. Let's go to Jose next. And Jose, there was a lot of interest in learning from our panelists in terms of how the structure works for you. So the question would be like your functional direct reports, or who are your direct reports? How much span of control do you have, basically?
Yeah, so currently our treasury organization is not a really large one. We've got about 10 folks in there. Our finance organization as a whole has grown tremendously over the last 5 years, as we've gone from being a single branded restaurant company to being this multi-branded company that we have today. But roles and responsibilities have stayed the same, although they've been expanded as far as certain areas with our franchisees. Just to give you a little bit of flavor there. So before, Inspire came to be, we had probably about 200 franchisees. Today we have over 1,400 franchisees across our portfolio. And each one is invested into our organization. And it's part of our responsibility to help make sure that that's an investment that becomes fruitful for them. Part of our job is to continue to help them grow their business. So we've taken a more proactive approach in helping our franchisees grow during that time. Supply chain and disruptions has been another area that we've also have incorporated into the finance role over the last few years. And that's never been more important than how it is today, with all the disruptions that we're seeing during COVID. But all in all, one of the things that I'll say from my particular role is just the access to the capital markets. Whereas we used to access the capital markets once in a while, I think we're now going into the capital markets maybe 3 or 4 times a year, since we're all looking at it from a brand basis and from a holding company basis. So it's been an extremely rewarding experience for the folks on my team and for the finance organization in general to get that particular experience, to understand how the bond markets work and how do we play in it, and versus the securitization markets or the term loan markets. It's been a real eye opener, a real growing experience for us to understand that area of the business.
And just as a follow-up, I mean, this might be a separate, sounds like a separate department, maybe under finance, but with 1,400 different franchisees,
Yeah.
Is there an accountability from the corporate? What kind of accountability is there in terms of centralizing any information, or is it more control? How does that all work?
Yeah, so I mean, data plays a big piece in our world these days, and understanding what our franchisees are experiencing is an important piece of our reality today. When somebody goes into an Arby's in Atlanta or goes into an Arby's in California, it doesn't matter. They should expect to have the same experience. So from a franchisee perspective, we've invested heavily in a lot of team members that get to help our franchisees sort of maneuver through operational procedures, where to invest their funds, whether which technology, what a piece of equipment, what are the areas that, for example, when we do benchmarking for our franchisees, what are the areas that we think that they can potentially have opportunities that we can then go back and that they can then go back and tweak. And we'll look through their P&L and we'll let them know that there are areas that, for example, they're not performing if their payroll is high or if their cost of goods sold is high. So we'll go through it with them and we'll help them hone in on areas of opportunity to help them really to become more profitable. Ultimately, you know, we get a fee, right? But that fee is based on their top line. So all the work that we do to help them manage their bottom line is really for their benefits, not really for ours. We want to make sure that they continue to grow and continue to be profitable, obviously, because with the help of our system really depends on our franchisees.
That's great. Let's go to Kristen. And Kristen, I'm going to switch the question up a little bit. It's interesting that all three of our panelists have been relatively long timers with their organizations. I think you said 17 years with United Way. Talk about, I would just say in the last 5 years, how has your role changed as a CFO? And this was like pre-COVID, now you have COVID, how's it changed? And then also looking over the next 5 years, how do you think it'll change?
You know, I think that going back 5 years ago, you know, to now, you know, a handful of things. I think, first of all, I'm looked upon to be, you know, a strategic partner, you know, most importantly, especially to our CEO and COO. You know, a lot of the strategy discussions we have at our leadership team level, but a lot of it comes down to the three of us and continuing to move the strategy needle, you know, down the road, if you will. So that's been a big, I think that's a change probably for every CFO. But I have to continue to, you know, challenge, be that strategic thought partner. That's one thing. I guess two, you know, just, you know, utilizing the data and, you know, really challenging myself and my team, you know, to become more proficient in various, you know, programs we have. We use Power BI a lot, you know, Microsoft Power BI, to visualize data for a lot of our internal stakeholders, you know, my colleagues, you know, with various, you know, departmental budget actuals, et cetera, just making things and making the data easier for non-accountant types to understand and be able to, you know, to use that data to make decisions. Yeah, I think is a big deal. Another thing I've taken on over the past 2 years is being the head of HR. So that's a whole other ballgame entirely for finance, and that has its own, you know, positives and challenges. But as I look forward to the future, I think United Way is changing a lot. I mean, we've, you know, experienced success over the past, you know, 2 months during the COVID crisis when we partnered with the Community Foundation to raise over $30 million for COVID relief, response, and recovery efforts. So we stood that up with the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta and have had a lot of success. So it's you know, we're at a pivotal time, you know, as to, you know, how can we continue to reach not only our existing corporate partners and individuals in the workplace, but also individuals outside the workplace. The younger generation, you know, gives their, you know, talent and treasure differently than the baby boomers. And so really just trying to understand how to reach them, understanding how to, you know, fundraise differently, how to get them in the door through volunteering. So while a CFO, some of that is a little bit indirect for me, you know, I still have a large seat at the table as a strategic partner and thought partner in that. So, you know, continuing, I think, to be that thought partner and continuing to push the usage of the data to make decisions is where, you know, I'll be spending my time.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it, you know, sounds right, spot on that you know, the roles of the CFOs and a lot of the C-suite. I have a lot of experience on the CIO side. Is they're, you know, they're given more thought leadership responsibilities to talk about the technology guys. You just slide the pizza under the door and you wait to see what comes out of it. You know, so now everybody is you know, around that leadership table, which is important. Steve, let's go to the same question for you. Obviously, Accenture is a company always on the move and a thought leader, but how's your role changed in regard to last 5 years, and then what do you see in the future?
Yeah, great question. And it certainly has changed in the last 5 years. With our company and our growth, we still, as a public company, have the pressure and stockholders and analysts expecting more profit. So as we grow, we just can't keep adding headcount. And so part of what we've done is transformed our company to use, digital. So getting, pricing tools or, our sales tools, putting them more in a digital environment, versus the manual, or using AI, where we now don't forecast because, people, naturally, if you ask everyone to forecast, they add contingency, we can use AI that is a better predictor and give us better results, and we can spend more time talking about the results, figuring out what we're going to do versus kind of compiling them. So we've seen that big change, and what's nice about that is, it's changed the way our finance works, and that now our people get to shift from, again, using spreadsheets, compiling data, to kind of where Kristen went to, is becoming more of a business advisor. And so as we've done that, as our company grows, we can afford to pay them more. We can move them up on the chain. They can have a better experience. They can get paid more. As they're adding more value to the company, they're doing more challenging work. It's also helped our business where now they have more readily available tools that they can get access to. They can do it on their own. They can get it to one of the, at a client site. They can get it on their plane as long as they can access the internet. They can do that without having a dialogue or relying on people. As with any clients, we have last minute surprises. So we've seen that big shift that, again, as our company moving to digital, moving to AI as a mechanism to get more predictive analytics. And that's changed people. Going forward, I think that's going to continue to change. Where I think we're going to have to look at, where do we go next? Expanding it. What Kristen said is expanding the roles of what we do. Where now we're trying to get people to be more client-facing, working with our clients, telling our story. So how do we help sell and talk about what we went through for this transformation? What did it mean to our people? How did we get to that change management? So I think the finance role is going to continue to evolve and change and become a critical role at the leadership team, dealing with, strategy, dealing with other aspects, like Kristen got HR, some are getting into the IT function, and some others are getting into other areas. So I think it will continue to evolve, but I see that as a great thing because it not only expands my career, expands my knowledge, but everyone below me.
That's great. Jose, I really want to ask you that same question as well. I think it's an important one in terms of, you've been there a while and how your role has changed and how it will change.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question and one that continues to evolve. But certainly, I like to echo some of the comments that the panelists have already provided, and that data continues to be an important part of our ecosystem. And it's something that we're using to help inform decisions. And it helps me inform decisions, especially as a leader in my organization, how to help manage my team and how my team helps manage other folks across the organization. But it's an unbelievably complex world we live in today, where we have all this tension going on around us, and it's important for us to consider the different areas that are highly personal to a lot of folks around there. But diversity is one thing that continues to evolve in our area. For example, when I first started working here, it was maybe a couple of folks in treasury, maybe 18 people total in finance, and today we probably have over 100 people in finance, 10 people in treasury alone, and the diversity and our investment into that is significant, and I think it continues to evolve for us.
And Jose, I have a couple of questions. I'll keep you on here for a while, but the data, we have some data questions later, but we're touching on a lot of that now. But how much of that has changed in terms of AI, or what kinds of things are you using and do you see that I'm everything's accelerating, certainly technology is, so yeah. It
is. We've invested in a whole department that is dedicated to AI and robotics and RPA. And we continue to look for ways in automating our data. We have so many different processes across our organization where our analysts are actually compiling data and not really understanding what's happening with this information. So there is a lot of investment going on in our area to help free up our analysts so that they're actually able to analyze and not necessarily be buried in the information and trying to collect it. Like I said, we've got a whole crew that we've been building out over the last couple of years as we built out this Inspire platform to help us understand all of the different processes that we're able to then automate. And we're just scratching the surface now, looking at areas within our corporate infrastructure that we think can be automated. But there's going to be a point where we're also going to be looking at what we can do in our restaurants as well. And we've seen some of our competitors roll out, certain automated equipment, for example, to help serve their guests. I can say we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But AI is definitely an important factor in how we're investing for the future. And again, we don't look at it as a replacement for human capital. It's an enhancer of our human capital. How do we help our folks understand what's happening? How do we help our folks make better decisions so that they can add even more value to our overall organization?
I would even think a lot of predictive analytics around, when people buy and what they buy, and
think about this. So here's some of the investments that we're doing with data. So it's not just necessarily predicting supply chain, predicting what to order. It's also predicting how many guests are going to come in through the door. It's also predicting how many hours we should schedule, how many folks should be in the restaurant at a certain point in time. So it's affecting all of our our entire business model. But it's from soup to nuts. All of the think about the whole supply chain as well. So ordering food, making sure that we have deliveries delivered just in time, so that we're serving fresh food for our guests. Making sure we have the right amount of employees. Making sure that when we engage with our guests, that we are crafting the right message for them. Understanding their past behavior so that we can predict their future behavior, so that we can then entice them to come in, visit us more frequently, or help fulfill their order more accurately, or be able to upsell if that's the goal that we're looking for.
That's great. One more question for you. This is totally different tack here, but I think it was John Patrick and some of the others thought it's an important question, because in our audience, we have a lot of career-oriented, probably everybody's career-oriented to one degree or another. Talk about, and let's keep these pretty crisp, but your journey through the C-suite. So what was your path to get to where you are today? I'm going to ask you.
Understanding the big picture. That's the biggest thing. You have to understand the big picture. Sometimes you can get bogged down in the minutia. You can get bogged down in your daily work, but understanding the big picture and understanding your role in the big picture and how you add value is crucial for growth. Because once you understand how you add value, then you can understand how you can be strategic about things. And that's the sort of the next level is, you know, being strategic, even if you're just an entry-level analyst or you're a VP in organizations, to some extent, you have certain areas or certain responsibilities that you own. So if you want to grow, one of the things that I would recommend is how do you become more strategic? And sometimes being more strategic is, you know, how do you add value? How do you continue to add value? How do you add more value? And continue to work with your, you know, immediate supervisors in crafting sort of that growth. When it comes to, you know, performance appraisals, there should never be any surprises, right? Yeah. So that dialogue between you and the immediate supervisor needs to be continuous, right? You need to be able to receive immediate feedback on how well you're doing. What are the areas that you think that you should be improving on to help you continue to grow? And, you know, some people are afraid of criticism, but you should really take it as a way for understanding how to get to that next level.
Right. I think that's a really good answer. And I would just add to it, you know, the thought about not being shy about making a contribution, standing up and, you know, volunteering a strategic suggestion, and even if it's not necessarily exactly in their role. Kristen, let's move back to you, and I'd like to ask you the same question about your career path, and put on here ropes to skip and ropes to jump, but you know, how have you kind of made it through to a level that you've achieved?
Sure. So my story is a little different. I was hired on at United Way of Greater Atlanta as controller, so right beneath the CFO, and was controller for 14 years. So most of my career at United Way has been as controller. And then my boss at the time took the CFO role at United Way Worldwide in Alexandria, and so that left the position vacant. And I thought, well, this is a really good opportunity here. So I wonder what my CEO is going to do. And so I got promoted, thankfully. But I would say, you know, looking back, I think if you asked Milton Little, you know, and my CEO and Tim Packenham, our COO, you know, I don't think it was a hard choice for them. And I think because you know, my boss at the time always included me in decision making and exposed me to the business from the very beginning. I didn't sit behind my computer and crunch numbers. You know, I was involved in a lot of the strategy discussions going back 17 years ago. So I think that, you know, surrounding yourself, and that's a learning for me, surrounding myself with, you know, strong talent and leadership, you know, only, you know, helps everybody rise. And I feel like that's what he did for me, you know, as he exposed me to everything the entire time. You know, I would also say just for me, you know, relationship building, can just, you know, continuing to build relationships inside the organization was key. Continuing to show my competency levels, you know, that I was more than capable to handle my current job and then some. So when the opportunity arose, you know, I was the fit. And then I think, you know, Tino, you might have said this, just not saying no to opportunities or challenges, just being willing to go the extra mile and make the extra effort to show, you know, the drive, I think was also important. And also, I would say, you know, I'm a pretty direct and transparent person at work and everywhere. So, you know, I wasn't ever hiding behind anything. I was always kind of what you see is what you're going to get. So there was never any hidden agenda or never any surprises. So I don't know if that works for everybody, but that, you know, that is a part of how I got to where I am.
That's great. Steve, I want to come to you. You can certainly touch on that question if you want, but I have a question that's probably perfect for you. So, because you have such a large company and you have people that have worked remotely before people had to work remotely. And for our listeners, how does one stand out in the crowd when they're working from home?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I know I get a lot of people ask me that because, you know, when you're in the office, you're in a meeting, it's a little more to engage. But what I always said is, because we're a big company and we don't all live in the same places, you know, working from home somewhat puts everyone on an equal playing field, because if you're the one who's in a meeting, you had to call in, it's hard to get, you know, your voice heard or engaged. Now everyone's doing that. And you know, my only take is, I tell people, first get involved with meetings you need to be in. You know, if you get on a meeting and you got, you know, someone else on your team that can contribute, you know, or someone else who has equal knowledge, then, you know, excuse yourself and be involved where you could be relevant, where you could add value. And then I think you'll naturally just stand out. It's not something that you could, you know, strive to do. I think if you're in the right meeting, you got the right expert, you have the right confidence, then you're going to participate. That's going to come through and people are going to notice you. So it's one of those things, just don't try to work at it, make it natural. I think it's real obvious when people are too concerned about it, trying to say something to say it. It doesn't add a lot of value, and it doesn't build a lot of kind of confidence in the leaders that you're around. And that does tie in a little bit to your question on the journey. You know, I would say, you know, I shared 25 years and I've had 10 jobs. And what I would tell people is never stop learning. You know, never stop taking chances. Don't be complacent. You know, the more knowledge you have and the more experiences you have, the more you know the business, you're going to make yourself more attractive to those around you, because you're going to have a broader experience versus someone who stays in the same role and does it year after year. The other thing too is, within our company, is because we're big, you have to be able, someone that, you know, can collaborate. You have to be a team player. This is not an individual sport. You won't survive. And that's hard for some people, because you try to stand out. You want to be, you know, kind of show off or whatever. You need to work together. People want to follow leaders that they admire and that they look up to. And you won't do that if you just try to go chart your own path. So that's some of the points I would say as you look at this, you know, just make it natural. I'm not one who sits here my own cheerleader. I'm a believer, if you do the right job, you know, it will get noticed and you will go on your right path. You know, as I say, after 25 years, it's not, you know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's gonna happen. You know, having one extra year and getting that experience to move up versus trying to take a job that doesn't have any value, you know, it's not going to get you to the top any quicker.
Let me keep with you, Steve. We're actually, I have probably 2 hours more worth of questions here. So, but the answers are great, and I want to make sure we promise that the audience, if they have questions, they'd be able to do that. So, I'm going to ask everybody this question, and then I'm going to ask Vanessa if there's some questions from the audience. We can always come back to some questions. So, this is around leadership development. I know Accenture does a lot in that area, but helping people, we like to say at Turknett, unleash their potential around culture and strategy. How's your company investing in people, whether it's coaching or you know, different ways you guys, I know you do a lot, so.
Yeah, we have several programs. One, we actually have a leadership development program, which is a formal program for us. For those that know us, you know, our highest level is a managing director, is what we call it. And before you enter into that managing director level, you need to go through this leadership development program. That leadership development program brings you together with other, in our case, corporate functions, as we call it. So it would include HR, marketing, legal, you know, all of the organizations that help run the business. We will pick our higher performers, put them together, and ask them to solve a problem, you know, and it's a real problem. We've learned that, don't make up one. We give them a real problem that the company is facing, and they get 6 months to kind of work together, collaborate, and then come back and share that idea with the executive team. And so that's, you know, it's a little bit of a test. How do they work together across, and how do they present and do an executive presence? So that's one thing we do. In addition, we have what we call a finance development program, of which we take someone that's been with us for about 2 years, and we put them in a rotational program. We're a big company. We have about 8 or 9 different functions within finance. And it's hard when someone comes out of school, they want to do finance, and we're saying, well, you know, pick your path. Well, you know, they don't really know. We want, after 2 years, We want to put them in this finance development program, and they do about 3 6-month rotations. So they get to get 3 different organizations within these 8. They get to try to experience it. At the end of those 3 rotations, we allow them to pick where they want to start their career, further their career. So those are things we do. In addition, we have, many other training we do internally, or we do external training too that we invest in, and we make all those commitments to our people. So really the focus on the leadership development, finance, and then ongoing training that is available to all.
That's great. You guys are a model for all this, so that's terrific. Kristen, let's go to you. I know you guys are doing a lot in this space too.
Sure. So we do have a limited budget, being a nonprofit in terms of what we can provide in terms of training. But we created about a year ago what we're calling United Way University, or UWU. And we're asking employees for this first year to have 5 credit hours of learning as a part of their, job requirements. So, UWU, a lot of the classes are, some of them are taught by internal staff, like I taught, a finance 101 on kind of how to manage, the revenue of the organization. There's been internal classes related to our child well-being efforts and helping, the rest of us in the organization that are not on the impact side, understand the child well-being index. But we're also offering external teachers, we're having them come in to our space downtown and teach about leadership, to teach about, how to manage folks better. We've had someone from Turner come in and do a discussion around challenging assumptions, which is a diversity, equity, and inclusion topic. So we provided kind of a mix of both. I guess the beauty of it is, staff register online and they don't have to leave our building to take the training. The trainers are coming to us. So it's been fairly successful. And we're also allowing, though, for those in finance that need CPE, obviously we're going to go outside of our building to get our credit hours as well. And then some individuals have wanted facilitation training, which we highly encourage, and we love leadership strategies here in Atlanta and have had folks take that facilitation training as well. But, prior to UWU, United Way University, we didn't have a formal training program. So it was really kind of a nice step for us and a nice offering for our employees to formalize it, require a small amount of hours and then encourage the training. So it's been well received so far.
Great. Jose, let's go to you next.
Yeah, we also have, leadership development programs here at Inspire Brands. In fact, that's something that goes back to when I first started in the organization. You go through this layered approach of leadership development. So we've got a fully funded training department within our organization. And, we start, even from the first day, it starts with, orientation, and where, every team member gets acclimated to our traditions and our culture and our values, and understand exactly, how to be good citizens within our organization and outside of our organization as well. And then it continues to progress forward as they progress in their careers. There's different levels of leadership development that they have access to, until you get to the point where your manager level is what we have them here, where you start actually receiving training on how to become a director. What does it take to manage multiple people and continue to grow in your career. And that includes creating a professional development plan, and helping people address areas really where they might think that they're weak, right? So we help them assess their strengths, their weaknesses, and then help them become better rounded professionals. Now, within the finance organization itself, one of the things that we do is that we'll take the leadership group in finance, we'll get together and we'll discuss open positions amongst us, and then we'll see exactly, we'll talk through whether there's any folks in other parts of the finance organization that might be able to fit in other roles. And in some cases, it might be a sort of a sidestep role. In other cases, it's a career, it's a next step role in their career path. We like to think of it as scaling a mountain. Sometimes you can't scale a mountain directly up. Sometimes you got to go side to side to be able to go up. But we discussed that as a group, and we identified those folks that could potentially, where we think we can unlock value if they were in other areas.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. Like you said, I mean, having various experiences is going to position people well for that higher level. So rotating them through different things is great. So Vanessa, I saw some questions popping in. Do you have some good ones for our panel? Some you can stump them or at least give it a shot?
Yeah, definitely. We have lots of questions coming in. Please do continue to send them. One of the questions that we got on here that we had a little bit of discussion around working from home came from Carmen DeSera, and her question was, with everyone working from home and not knowing when we'll be back in the office, what is your company doing to increase the team collaboration? Also, what are your business units and teams currently doing to prevent working in silos, given the fact that you're not in the same place?
So that's great. I'll let anybody that wants to tackle that in terms of, collaboration, working from home, your individual, you have a team, but I know communication's key, but somebody want to go for that one?
Yeah, I'll try, and then others can chime in. I think, it is something that's top and center for us. One is, how do we make sure people continue to get a balance of life and personal? Because I think, yes, you're working from home, you don't have to commute, but now I think some expectations are different. You can always be accessible. So we're doing a couple things is, one, to keep everyone engaged. We have great leaders who are coming up with things. We're having virtual happy hours to keep just, making it personal versus all work. Having just open dialogue. So just block out a day to continue to talk and get to know people versus making this, every call you get on and talk about work. So I think we got to continue to do that, just like you would do, if you're in the office, you go out to lunch, you go out after, work just to talk or, have a drink or whatever you do. So don't change some of that. How do you continue to do that and people get excited? I know some folks have, we've done a virtual, what we call First Friday, where we walk out the day and, one will have a training session, talk about what's new for us, what are we doing, followed by maybe some of our employee resource groups, that we have, getting them in a breakout, talking about what's going on with their life and so forth. So kind of doing that. From a work perspective, I think we're very accustomed from the collaboration that no one can do it themselves. So we do, want to make sure, people are a little more flexible in this environment because people are challenged working from home. Either they're taking care of their kids, elders, different people. So we've asked people to keep that collaboration, to be more flexible so that you are able to include the right people. Don't assume everybody can start at 8 o'clock. There's things going on. So we try to encourage to be a little more flexible and get the right people.
That's great. Anybody else want to jump into that or?
Sure, I'll take it. I'll take it. I think at the beginning of this, no one had any idea, right, that it was going to last as long as it is lasting and is continuing. So we have done a few things. We started sending out an HR email, every day to all staff on a variety of topics, from how to keep your kids entertained during COVID to resources, the Blue Cross Blue Shield resources for our healthcare, to COVID tidbits, et cetera. Just trying to keep employees engaged. We also do all of our meetings, either Microsoft Teams or Zoom, and we do require video to be on. No matter what you look like, but we do require video to be on to keep engagement up, and it really does make a difference. I'll be honest, I was opposed to requiring video on at the beginning in March. And I was like, what if they don't want to do video? But but it really is true. It does help engagement. So I've been on board ever since then. From a finance team perspective, we started off with a daily check-in call at 3 p.m. Monday through Thursday. We didn't do it on Fridays to allow some flexibility, but Monday through Thursdays at 3, just to check in with people, because we have, there's lots of people that are single or divorced or, living in a 400 square foot apartment by themselves and, not able to go anywhere. And I think it's easy for them to feel isolated. So the check-in call was really just not really a check-in per se, but more how's everyone doing? How's your day been? And we would, kind of talk about things everyone needs to know. But I really do think the check-in calls have helped. Now that was 4 days a week. We've since gone down to 2 days a week. And our HR emails are not every day anymore. They're pretty much every other day because you do run out of things to talk about or talk about, right? But I think that, all of those tips have helped. And then we have a monthly general staff meeting with all staff. So we have about 200 people on staff. And so that's via Zoom, and we require video as well. And, honestly, we have about 170 people every time we do that meeting on Zoom, which is much higher attendance than we ever have in person. We would have our general staff meetings in person. So it's kind of interesting. It's easier to engage. There's no driving involved, so more people are joining in. So, that's what we've been doing, and I think for the most part, it's been successful.
Jose, I think you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we are Zooming and Teamsing all over the place. So we're doing everything we can to maintain the collaboration in our particular department. From an organizational standpoint, we are holding town halls every other week where we invite everybody in the company to participate. And we just give them, basically a state of the union, let folks know how the business is doing, especially in our environment. We had to close dining rooms back in March, and we were forced to furlough some folks that because of the dining room closures. So it was good to welcome them back as we started opening the dining rooms. And it was good to also connect with all of our team members here in our corporate office to let them know exactly what the process was, let them know exactly what we were working on as an organization, as a leadership team, to help navigate through this particular crisis. In our department, we're having virtual happy hours as well. It's not the same as, going down a couple of floors or a few floors and having a beer in our beer wall, but it's still just as good to interact with folks in a way that isn't just about work, and just catch up on what folks are doing, because that's something that you miss from the daily interactions of seeing folks on a day-to-day basis, is just connecting with them on a level that isn't just about work.
No, that's great. So I think we have time for at least one more question. Do you have another one there?
Oh yeah, we have several. So we have one from Veronica Maldonado Torres from VMT Consulting. Her question is, how has leading your team and forecasting changed during this time? Where have you noticed any pressure points, and what strategies have you put in place in order to navigate the uncertainty and keeping your staff from mental burnout?
Let's take a question for someone. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start again. As odd as this sounds, at least on forecasting, I've told the business and all my teams, don't. I will look at it, and they'll be the only one. It's chasing a wave, as we call it. There's so much change or turbine. We don't know when this is going to end, how long it's going to go. And so having a lot of time, the people spending time guessing, especially as we're looking out, long term, is not beneficial. I'd rather them work on more value added stuff. So from forecasting, we're only doing it at the North America level. So me and a couple people look at it. We do have some key indicators that we look at. For us, obviously, we're looking at our sales, what our pipeline's looking at, how that's converting. And so we just keep it at that level. I think you were asking about what you do to to do with burnouts, I think that some of those things is what are we going to stop? Certainly, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of things going on with companies, and I'm sure the other panelists are going through it, right? Is, what are we seeing? What things can we do? You got to manage through this, right? Certainly everyone's probably top line is impacted. What are you going to do to control your costs? What are you going to do to avoid, any workforce actions? That's the last thing you want to do. So more of this is what can we stop doing and focus on the things that have to be.
Yeah, it's a good point about taking pressure off them, to some degree, particularly when there's the forecasting, for an example, becomes really difficult. Jose, you.
Yeah, forecasting has become super important for us, especially as the crisis unfolded. We had to determine what the paths were available to us after we started closing dining rooms and developing strategies to help navigate that. Obviously, some of our restaurants have drive-throughs and takeout, so we were able to manage fine with that and implemented delivery to continue to keep that the business open, so to speak. Other businesses, let's say Buffalo Wild Wings, for example, it's a sports bar where the bars were closed and there were no sports on TV. So a little bit more challenging environment there to help navigate that. But, one of the things that we saw opportunity in all this. So we actually were able to go through the organizations across all departments and pick out folks and take them out of their day-to-day routine and put them in special, teams that we called green teams. And their full job at that point in time is just look towards the future. What is going to be the new normal? What are the opportunities that potentially are going to be out there? And understand, to help us understand what exactly we might be investing for in the future. So that was just one of the areas that we looked after. But, part of our responsibilities as a finance team is the responsibilities that we have to our stakeholders, right? Our investors, our lenders, and our team members. And, we went through a whole process where we forecasted different scenarios, whether, there was a quick turnaround, whether it was a very slow recovery, whether there's a recurrence happening in the fall. And we went through all those scenarios to help us understand what we needed to do now to help us prepare ourselves for that uncertainty. It's not a journey that we took all of our team members through, but certainly there was a lot of exercise within our organization to understand how can we be better prepared for the uncertainty.
Okay, great. Kristen, anything you want to add?
I would just echo a little bit what Steve was saying. Forecasting is challenging right now. We've taken a super conservative approach since most of our revenue is based on pledges, and reserving a decent portion of those, not knowing what's going to happen with giving, with the unemployment rates being as high as they are right now and so on. So we've been pretty conservative there. In terms of employee burnout, one thing we started probably early April is what we're calling flexible Fridays. And so we're not saying, you have a day off every Friday. What we are saying is, your workload, what you're managing, your mental health. You have the flexibility on Fridays to take care of things at home, do what you need to do. I mean, everyone is an adult and knows what they need to do in terms of getting their job done. So, with the flexible Friday scenario, we're not requiring someone to be in front of their computer 8 to 5 on a Friday. And I think that's really helped a lot of people, just giving them some freedom and flexibility. In that Monday through Thursday, we're all, honestly, probably working more than we were when we were in the office because we're just available. We don't have to drive anywhere. So that's something I added.
All right. I understand. Time for a couple more questions. This one's specifically for Jose, and then the last one will be for everybody. So Vanessa, you want to come back on?
Yeah, so this question is specifically for Jose from Adilka White from UPS. Her question is, how is Inspire supporting or targeting Hispanic entrepreneurs as a base for franchisees?
So that's a very good question, and one of the things that we've learned from data is that the Hispanic population are big fans of our brands. So one of the things that we've been doing, and we see it actually, it's one of the things that we have in especially in one of our brands at Sonic. We have dozens of Latino franchisees in our organization, and up until recently, we actually are one of our folks in our C-level suite was a Latino as well. He's since has become CEO at another organization. So you know, this obviously served as a good springboard for that particular gentleman. But you know, we continue to be very inclusive. Honestly, we would love to have more Latino franchisees in our organizations. A lot of our brands today are not in Latin American countries. Buffalo Wild Wings, one of our largest franchisees, is in Mexico. But outside of Mexico, there really isn't any Buffalo Wild Wings in the rest of Latin America. Sonic doesn't have any international footprints today, but we are opening one in Puerto Rico this year. So we continue to look for ways to have more Latinos participate in our brand because they're such huge brands. They're huge fans of our brand. So we think they'd be excellent franchisees.
Great. Back to you, Vanessa.
Okay, we have we're going to do two more questions if that's okay, Tino. We have the next two are for everyone on the panel. So if we could keep the answers on the shorter side, then we could fit two questions in. This question is from Nancy Cranford from the Turknett Leadership Group. Her question is, if someone wants to be a CFO, what are the top 3 tips that you would give them regarding a career path and skill sets to get them there, for them to get there more quickly?
Okay, this is good. And so since we want to keep this short, why does all 3 of you give one idea? And start with Kristen, and we'll go Kristen, Steve, and Jose.
Vanessa, can you repeat the question? I was thinking as you were saying it.
Yeah, no problem. Her question was, sorry, let me scroll back down to it. If someone wants to be a CFO, what are the top 3 tips that you would give them regarding a career path and skill sets that they would need for them to get there more quickly?
All right, thank you. I would say number 1, get a CPA certificate. And number 2, start in Big 4 public accounting. That's great experience.
I would say know the business you're in. You know, finance, we've all talked about it. Be relevant, be at the leadership table. If you don't understand the business, how you make money, how you operate, what you're selling to your clients or your situation, you just won't progress. And then I know you said one. The other one too is, as a CFO, you know, or finance, if you don't know the answer, don't guess. You know, say you don't know, go look at it. We're known for numbers. You don't want to give a bad number.
That's a good one. Jose.
Yeah, I would also echo that know the business, because CFO is a lot more than just running the organization. CFO, I mean, it's basically a co-CEO. You're talking to a lot of folks outside of the organizations. There's a lot of relationships that have to be built and have to be maintained as a CFO. So knowing the business and being able to tell the story of the business is very important.
So Vanessa, we've got one more. I think our panel did a good job on that. We kept them crisp.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me pull up this next one. So the next question is from Eric Richner from Voya. The question is how is your company dealing with the generational transitioning, you know, boomers versus millennials, et cetera? And how is your company positioned for this? And how does this directly affect your finance group?
Okay, whoever wants to take that. 5 generations in the workforce.
Yeah, I've got nothing but millennials working in my group, so.
I would say, as you said, we got 5 generations. I think one is acknowledging that you have different generations, and we do spend some time educating people about that, understanding, what everyone's going through, what people believe, and some people need board directives, some people want to be more inclusive. So I think understanding the different generations so that you can be respectful and play into what's going to engage them more is the most critical piece.
Yeah, and I would also
and I would
add
just
that,
say also, just being flexible and understanding that everyone is different.
yeah, and I would just add, just whatever the values are of your organizations, just anchor around those values and the culture, because I mean they're meant to build bridges among between generations and between diverse groups as well.
And also at Turknett, we learned that you can't put everybody into a box, right? I mean, millennials, that name has become negative in some circles, and they are the largest generation in the workforce, and they're very diverse people within that. So really understanding who you're working with, sort of from the beginning of leadership, it's who you're working with and how you're going to work with them, best ways to communicate. And the leader has to be malleable and be able to understand the best ways to work with people. So with that, Vanessa and John Patrick, I want to thank the panel personally. You guys did a great job. Thanks for your time. And we'll turn it back over to the leadership.
John Patrick, you there?
I think you might still be on mute, John Patrick.
He's trying. I see him.
We still can't hear you.
Okay. I'm going to try the speakerphone. Let's go. There you go. There you go.
We can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
We can see you and hear John Patrick. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Good. That's good news. So I wanted to just thank all of our panel for coming today and speaking. I think everybody's learned a lot about, what being a CFO means and how you're adjusting to the different challenges at all your companies. I mean, having, Steve Stone here from Accenture, Kristen McCollum from the United Way of Greater Atlanta, and Jose Paniagua from Inspire Brands. I mean, these are all leading brands, leading companies that everybody knows that manage, especially in the case of the for-profits, tens of billions of dollars in revenue. And I'm just really honored and really appreciate you guys making time to come out today. So thank you very much. Also, I want to give my great thanks to the Turknett Leadership Group and Tino Mantella, who, put a lot of time in, a lot of discussions to put together this panel, determine what questions we're going to ask, how it's going to go, and Nancy Cranford, who brought me the idea, and we set it all up. So thank you so much, Tino. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Last, so I wanted to just go out on that note. Thank you all for coming. I'm really excited that we had this first virtual event. I think it went really well, and especially we had a great panel. I do want to make one note before we leave. I want to say that the board, myself, and I know many of our members are celebrating today because of the, decision that came down from the Supreme Court about our many friends and members who are dreamers. And we look forward to working with you and seeing you and enjoying your company for a lot of years to come. So just wanted to make that note. We look forward to seeing everybody at the next quarterly. Thank you to our panel. Thank you to our members. Thank you to our directors. And have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Giovanni.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't know if you stopped recording.
I have not.
Oh, okay, that was good. It looks